Welcome back to Empowered Living. I'm Melanie, and before I begin today, I'd like to just give a huge thank you to all of you who've been cheering me on and leaving me great messages, text, messages on my messenger, DMs, and in the comment section below. It means so very much to me to know that I have a great support system on this new journey that I'm embarking on, and to know that I'm never alone. I just really wanted to start off with just saying thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, enough of all of that. Where I left off last was giving kind of a quick intro into what my intention here on Empowered Living would be, which is to really, one, share my steps to my personal healing process. And the really ironic thing when I started this weight loss was that I had no idea that the real weight that was holding me down and was so very heavy to carry had absolutely nothing to do with the physical weight that I was carrying on my body. And that realization propelled me onto the path of total healing that not only included my body, but more importantly, my mind. You know, people often say mind, body, and spirit. And for me, in my opinion, the spirit really has nothing to do with it. The spirit is whole. Wait, that's a whole nother topic. Let me stop because I can go on and on and on about that. And I don't want to get sidetracked. The point of today's message is about mind and body. So, as I started to make the adjustments to my body, I encountered all kinds of roadblocks in my thought process, but better stated, excuses, because that's really what they were. Excuses like, I'm so tired, I work too many hours, I don't have time. These are all common. I'm sure some of you've probably used those too, but those were the first things that I came up against. And they really were the easiest ones to kind of knock down. For example, I'm too tired. Well, I started to go to bed earlier. Too many work hours. Now that one didn't change because I really love the work that I do. And after my, 9 to 5, I will give about 5-10 more if I have to, because I really enjoy what I do. So that wasn't going to stop. But what did stop was that I stopped using it as an excuse and saw it instead as giving back, giving to the purpose of who I really was, and really just allowed that to be, what it was, enjoyment. Because I've never really ever felt that I worked a day in my life when I started, teaching. So that had to stay, and it wasn't moving anywhere. It was just how I was looking at it. It was no longer going to be something that I used as an excuse to why I wasn't attending to my self-health. To the I don't have enough time or hours. I just really started to just restructure. I restructured my time, and since I was going to bed earlier, then that meant that I was waking up earlier, and 4 o'clock in the morning wasn't such a bad time. In fact, it was a great time. Everybody was asleep. I didn't have anybody needing anything of me. It was just me time. And that became such a sacred time for me, a time zone for me, a time slot for me. I really did enjoy waking up and just hitting the gym and just, delving into whatever I wanted. Sometimes I decided that maybe I wanted to read, or I might wanted to do some, self-reflection. And I really thoroughly enjoyed that time. I also started journaling. Now I journal all the time. All the time you'll see me with my journal, and I'll just, jot down some things. But it became no more excuses. So those were really the easiest ones for me to knock down. But the next wave of blocks, those took me way deeper into my mindset. As I came up against these next blockades, I began to realize that most of all of our perceptions are formulated in our child mind. When we experienced that first hurt, disappointment, failure, or insecurity, we stored that experience. And if it was not addressed in a healthy, healing way, it became a point of reference, if you will. And anything that remotely resembled that first injury caused in us a very similar reaction to our first reaction. So now here we are, all walking around with our own bags of collections and just creating our own realities based on our perceptions. So what's in your bag? My bag, there's a really cool story about this bag, but I can't get into it now because it's way bigger than this segment. But what's in my bag that I have been carrying around forever? I don't know if you can see this. Hurt, doubt, and the biggest one of all, the biggest one, fear. I had been carrying around that for, it seemed like, forever. There were so many things in my life that had caused me to be fearful, and I didn't even know that it would show up in my journey of healing, at least in weight loss healing. And it was really very interesting how it showed up. It would sometimes, I promise you, it would paralyze me to the point where I could not even literally move. Like I'd lie in bed feeling completely numb, like cemented. I was cemented in fear. So much so that movement forward was impossible. So I had to figure that out. I really did. I had to figure out, why was I so fearful? What was it about fear that had me completely incapable of doing certain things? So I had to dive just a little bit deeper. And as a child, I realized that, like most children, I wanted to please my parents. Or at least I wanted to have some type of positive reaction from them on most things that I was doing. But when what I gave or what I was putting out didn't receive what I had anticipated, I became fearful that I was not doing my best, or that I wasn't enough, which led me to the belief that I wasn't good enough for anything. And that just started to play in this story and that story and this story, and ultimately it left me feeling unlovable. So when I gained that weight and I started struggling to lose it, like I tried this diet and it wouldn't work, or I tried that and I'd stop, and I just started to feel like I'm never going to be able to do this. And all of those feelings and all of those emotions that I had had in my past just started flooding me all over again. And that fear of not being well received was right there in the front line. And I had to find my way through this time. Going over it was not going to be enough. And when I mean going over it, I mean like skipping over it or putting it under the rug, or giving this excuse or that excuse. It wasn't going to do it. It wasn't going to cut it this time. I had to break through this fear. So I started with unlearning fear, basically. I began realizing that I was the one creating my own fear by continuously telling myself things that I was fearful of. Like, I couldn't do this, or, I would probably fail at this, or, I remember when I tried last time and I wasn't very successful. And it was crazy. It was crazy that I kept saying these things to myself, because I loved winning as a kid. I think all of us love winning. And when we were being selected for teams, I was always one of the first ones that people selected on their team, because I had a truly competitive spirit. I was determined to win. And my peers, they knew that. They knew that having me on their team ensured a victory for them. And so being super athletic and being strong and, always having a sense of who I was, all of that stuff was still part of me. But it had been buried because there had been those times when I had attempted to do this and I wasn't very successful. And I just could not see myself going through that again. I hated to lose. I really did. And as I started this journey, fear, it sat there. It sat there right there smiling at me. Every time I attempted to lose weight before, it kept reminding me of how disappointed I felt or how emotionally wrecked I would get after I had not yet achieved my goal. That scenario played over and over and over and over again. But I had had it. I had had it. I knew who I was. And I started to compete with that fear. I started playing images of success over and over in my head. I started smiling as I recalled those success stories. And you know what fear did? It started to buckle. It started to quiet down. And after a while, fear had nothing to say. Because you know what? Confidence showed up. And confidence wasn't going anywhere. And so I guess what I'm trying to say in a nutshell is that when we tell ourselves things, we believe them. We believe everything that we tell ourselves. So when I was telling myself the story of, being defeated, I was defeated. And when I started to tell myself that I wasn't going to be defeated, I started gaining momentum of belief that I could overcome this. And 10 times out of 10, I promise you, we always are. We always are very capable of overcoming anything that we see as an obstacle in our lives. And that's exactly what I did. And so what I'd like to do is challenge you guys this week as you guys are journeying through your days and you're coming up against those things that you have found yourself to be completely challenged at and not even sure if you could overcome it, that you start telling yourself a different story. You start telling yourself a story of accomplishing it, of success. And I guarantee that after a while, you're going to see that success. So just stay with it. Just stay with it. And I hope you stay with me. Thanks for watching. Have a good day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.